Welcome, everyone. I'm Richard Cole. I'll be your host tonight for our quarterly webinar where our student section is sponsoring discussing the future of the nuclear industry with industry executives and people that are interested in the program. I'll start off and I'll introduce Kelly, and then we'll go through questions, and then at the end, we'll open it up to where you can ask your questions online. Appreciate everybody being on mute. Until then, you can put questions in the Q&A. But tonight, I've got the pleasure of welcoming Kelly Ferneau. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Nuclear Officer from American Electric Power and has oversight of AEP's Donald C. Cook Nuclear Plant in Bridgman, Michigan. Most recently, she's been the site vice president at Cook. She was responsible for day-to-day operations of the plant, including all plant production, organizations, regulatory affairs, corrective action program, site protective services, emergency planning, training, and document control. Previously, she had been the plant manager. She has been at AEP since 2013. Prior to joining AEP, she worked at Exelon, now Constellation, at the Byron Nuclear Plant for 18 years, where she obtained her senior reactor operator's license. That's where I first met Kelly, when she was a shift manager on one of the shifts at Byron at that time. She held positions in engineering, maintenance, and operations. She also worked at energy at the Palisades Nuclear Station, where she held the position of assistant outage manager. She's a graduate of Trine University with her bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Thank you for joining us tonight, Kelly.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our first question I'll go into, we'll talk a little bit about your careers. What led you to joining the nuclear field?
Well, my dad was an engineer, and if he was going to go out and work on the car or work on the lawnmower, he would invite me out. And I loved tinkering with all those types of things. So that led me to want to go into engineering. And then when I was in high school, Trine University had a week-long program that was geared around getting women interested in engineering. So I went up there for a week, and we took a couple of field trips. One was to the Kellogg's factory in Battle Creek, Michigan, and the other one was to the Cook Nuclear Plant, where I currently work. And the plant just had an amazing visitor center. It overlooked the plant. It had, holograms and talked about the power of nuclear, and I just fell in love with it. And I'm like, man, I really want to work in nuclear power. So then I went to college, mechanical engineering. And when I was interviewing, one of the interviews I had was with, Constellation, and they also happened to offer the most amount of money. And so that took me to Byron Nuclear Station, where I started my career. And I've been blessed ever since then.
Can you describe your career in the nuclear industry and what path, led you to where you are now?
Sure. So I started out in the engineering department, and I had check valves and the in-service inspection program, snubbers, supports, all those types of things. And I was in engineering for 4 years. And then there was a job posting to go to license training to get a senior reactor operator license. And so I applied for that. Since I had an engineering degree, I could go directly to be a senior reactor operator. And so I was accepted into that program. That was about an 18-month-long class with simulator training, procedure training, all different 18 months of training and testing. And I got my license from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And then I went out into the operations department. And once I started there, I was an in-plant field supervisor, and then a unit supervisor, shift manager, worked my way up through the operations organization. And then I had the opportunity to go to maintenance. I never considered it, but the maintenance director at the time, I'd worked with him in operations, and he said, hey, you want to come to maintenance? And so I jumped on the opportunity and worked with the the Fix It Now team, which was a really exciting position because every day you got to fix things and make things better. And then my dad got sick, and I had the opportunity to move a little bit closer to home. And so that took me to the Palisades plant that's in Michigan. And I worked there. I went into the outage management groups. That got me experience in work control. And then I had the opportunity to come down to Cook. The plants are only 30 miles apart. And I came back into operations, and I became the operations director there, and then worked my way up, plant manager, site vice president, and now the chief nuclear officer.
So can you tell me about any challenges you had as you were working your way through your career?
Yeah, so a couple of different ones. When I did go to license training, the when you're on the simulator, you need to show command and control. And before I even started, I was told, that I'm going to have to really work at that. And I do think that was because, I'm a woman, and there weren't a lot, and there still really aren't a lot of women in that position. But, the instructors kept an open mind, and they let me show what I had. And I was able to make that through just fine. When I switched jobs, from Byron to Palisades, and then Palisades to Cook, it's, you're starting over from scratch. You work someplace and you build a reputation where people know what you can do, know how to work together, and you start over from scratch and you have to prove yourself again. So those were a couple of challenges that ended up being successful, mostly because I think, like, everyone I've worked with in the nuclear industry is just good people. It's a really amazing place to work with a lot of good people with good hearts and good minds. And so if you work hard, you're going to be successful.
So you've advanced, obviously some very senior positions over the years. What would you say is what's your best professional quality in order to be able to have a career like you have?
I was thinking about that because I think that's a hard question, but what I ended up with, I think, is maintaining curiosity. There's been quite a few jobs that I've had where the people that worked for me knew much more about the job than I did, and I was coming in as their supervisor. And so I never came in, trying to change things or prove how smart I was. I stayed curious and really wanted to understand the job and the challenges that they had, and what was going well, and then just tweak things along the way to make things better. And then as I've moved up in the organization, making sure I stay curious when people bring me information, asking questions, that trust but verify. Don't just necessarily take what they're telling me, but ask, 3 questions deep. How did they know? Who did they talk to? How do we know this is the right solution? So always having that curiosity to make sure that I understand what's going on, and I can truly weigh in and make good decisions, and understand what my folks are going through. The other thing I think that's for me key is that what motivates me is developing people. I've never been someone that, if you asked me the question, what do you want to do in 5 years? I would never have an answer to that. I just always wanted to do a good job, and I always wanted to help develop people and make things better for people. So I think having, I'll say, pure motivation has been something that has helped me all along the way, because it people will support you when they know that you have good intentions.
So what was your favorite position that you've had over your time?
My most favorite position was when I was the field supervisor in operations. I loved being out in the plant. I loved working with the new operators. And when I first started, the operators that were there knew the job better than I did. Starting up equipment, those kinds of things. So I spent a lot of time trying to go out and watch everything that they did so I could learn it. And then when the next classes came through, I could help them and teach them and mentor them. And so I absolutely loved that, because we had a lot of folks go through that position as they got promoted. And so I was able to learn it myself, and then be able to teach the next generation that came through, and just being active out in the plant every single day. I absolutely loved it.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk a little bit about the future of the industry. So could you share your vision of the future of the nuclear industry, and what do you see as the opportunities and challenges?
So it's a really exciting time right now in nuclear. Um, the data centers, the load growth in the country is exponential, something that we have never seen before. And so the key to being able to provide that for that load growth really is nuclear. I mean, the company I work for, we have a mix of energy sources, and we will continue to do that. But we are leaning heavily on, small modular reactors. And right now, there are many different vendors out there working on small modular reactors. And I do think that we are going to be building those within the next, 10 years. I believe that we will have, um, pods of small modular reactors all across the country. It's going to be needed. And so the opportunities out there are huge. The new technologies, they're safer. The current fleet is very safe, but the new technologies are safer. So that's going to be good. You build them in pods so that you don't, if one plant is down for maintenance or something along those lines, you still have, you know, 3 to 4 or 5 other plants running to provide the constant power to the grid. So the designs of them are very sweet, I'll say. And the challenges, so even now we run into challenges with the supply chain and with resources. Electricians are in high demand, and we just don't have enough in the country right now. So I think that engineers are another, where there's a lot of competition out there, and we're going to be building new plants. So we're going to need more engineers. We're going to need more craftspeople. We're going to need a really robust supply chain, and those things are all lacking currently.
Well, this is a little bit outside the questions that I gave you, but what percentage of the people at a nuclear plant actually need to have an engineering degree?
It's actually a pretty small percentage. I think maybe I would say we have 20% of the people at the plant have engineering. That's one of the things I truly love about nuclear. You can come without any kind of, postgraduate degree. You can come with your high school degree, and you can work your way all the way up through, to be a senior reactor operator. And we have security and operations and maintenance, and we have finance and human resources, just material handling, all kinds of positions that anyone can come to. And we provide almost all of that training. The only training we really don't provide is for someone to get their initial engineering degree. But we have a shooting range on site, so we train our security officers. We have the simulator, we train our operators. We have, standby pumps, and we train our mechanics. So it's a great opportunity. You don't have to have a degree. If you have a degree, we have, spots for you too. But that is one thing about nuclear, that we take all kinds of folks with all kinds of skills, and we have the training capabilities to provide skills they need to be successful.
You're plant hiring?
Always. We are always hiring.
I think everyone is.
Yeah.
So what should a person do? What can a person do to help position them to be desirable for you to be hired by you?
I think for me, when I'm looking at folks, to work in nuclear, you have to have a desire to do things right. It's a nuclear power plant, so we have to do things right. You can't take shortcuts, those kinds of things. So having a little bit of discipline in the way you work is important. Being open to, new ideas. That's one thing I'm always looking for, someone who can think outside of the box. So it's not about taking shortcuts, but it's about, coming in with fresh eyes and saying, I see how we do this, but how can we do it better? As you work in a place for a while, you kind of get things settled in and say, okay, that's the way we always do it. And we need people that have a different viewpoint. We do have a lot of internships, And it's not just engineering. We do internships in chemistry and radiation protection. And so looking for opportunities to come in for, in an internship, it's paid. You get your foot in the door. You get to see if you like it. We get to see if you like, if you like it, and if we like you. So looking for those opportunities. I would also say showing that you have the ability to learn is another important thing. So that curiosity piece that I was kind of talking about earlier, I think is important as well. So that's what I would say.
Now, another slight change again, but this is one that's really important to me for a couple of reasons. One is I've got 3 daughters, so I've seen them grow through careers and what they're doing, and a granddaughter. But the other is from my years in the Navy, there's a lot more women in the Navy, and in our programs that excels here, I'm starting to see a lot more women coming through our bachelor's in nuclear engineering technology. So they're going to be looking toward moving toward the fleet too. So what are the opportunities for women and to enter and advance in the nuclear industry?
Well, it's huge. It's huge opportunities. We're always looking to have our plant population match our community as far as, um, you know, sex and race and all those kinds of things. We want it to reflect our local community. And we don't have as many women working at the plant as I would like. Um, so there's many opportunities, and we have tons of opportunities for men too. It's just like I said, we're hiring all the time, but we are looking. We do mentorships and things like that to help promote women, because we do see that there's a gap in our demographics at the site. So there's opportunities to advance. There's opportunities to get mentorship and to grow as an individual and as a leader. So the women in nuclear is one. And just so everyone knows, women in nuclear is not exclusive to women. Men can join that as well. But that is one big opportunity that you can join, as a student. You can join as a person in the workforce that offers all kinds of mentoring opportunities that would help you get to know some people in the industry, get your foot in the door, and help you on your career path.
So besides, you talked about the women in nuclear, what other supports are available for women who would be interested in entering?
There's one program that it's women in nuclear again, but it's the GROW program. It's a specific mentorship program that if you're a member of WIN, you can sign up for, and it's one-on-one mentoring with another woman in the industry. So I would recommend that. American Nuclear Society has a lot of different programs to help get, and that again is not just limited to women, but they do have a high woman focus for their nuclear programs. The International Atomic Energy Association, they do have specific programs specifically for women where you can get scholarships and mentoring and those types of things. So I would go online and look there. Those are the big ones that stick out in my head. And like I said, a lot of them aren't specific to women, but like Women in Nuclear does have a focus on advancing women, but it is open to everybody.
So what advice would you give to a woman in high school or college who'd like to enter into a career in nuclear power?
I would say don't be afraid. Just because, you go to a plant and you don't see many other women, that's not a reason to back out. Um, and I would say we typically get, as new hires, it's maybe 30, 70 women to men. But what we see is as people go through their career, you know, as a family unit, when you start having kids, there's decisions that are made for who's going to, take over more of the family care and those types of things. And in the past, it has typically been women. What I would say to that, though, is it doesn't have to be. And as long as you have a good partner, I would look for a good partner that can share responsibilities, and you can make a career in nuclear work. There's a lot more flexibility than there used to be. It used to be you needed to be at the plant all the time. But with COVID, we found that, some remote work is possible. We do have flexibility for if people need to alter their hours somewhat to drop, kids off at daycare, those types of things. So there's a lot more flexibility in the nuclear workplace than there ever used to be in the past, which would help either men or women, whoever is going to take on that primary caregiver role in the family unit. So those are some of the things that have, I think, held women back or caused them to leave the industry in the past that has changed in the recent times. So I would say get a good partner. And the other thing too is there's a lot of flexibility if you just ask. And some people are shy to ask, I need this day off or this, thing with this family member, and if you just ask, things can be worked out, and that would help you be able to stay in the nuclear industry, if that makes sense.
It does.
Mm.
There, we really found a lot of things that we could do remotely that we didn't know that we could.
Right.
And it works well.
Yep.
My school is in New York, but here I am living in Florida.
Yeah. Yep. So there's lots of opportunities, and I wouldn't be afraid. I would just go for it because I think it's been a huge opportunity for me, and I have not regretted a single second of it.
Great. That's all the questions that I have. So we're going to set up that we're going to take questions from the audience. You can either raise your hand and ask your questions personally, or you can put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll find them there. While we're setting up to do that, Kelly, do you have anything else that you'd like to share with the group tonight?
One question I get a lot is around mentoring, asking for mentors, being a mentor, and those types of things. And I would say that a lot of times I get asked by other women if I will be their mentor. And I typically say yes to that. But what I would want to say is if you're looking for a mentor, I would look for multiple mentors. So if you have something that you're really good at, you might find somebody else that is good at that and talk to them about how you can lean on that strength. If you know you have a weakness, I would find somebody that's good at that particular thing and work with them on how to improve in that area. And so it doesn't need to be all these big formal mentorships, but I would be seeking out folks that have something that you want to learn from and setting up, little touch points with them, instead of, just going for like mentor. Maybe go for somebody who's opposite of you. And I think that will, that's a better method than just picking somebody because they happen to be the same gender.
For anybody that isn't familiar, American Nuclear Society has a program for identifying mentors on to do that. You can work online if you're helping to look for a mentor that way. Okay, so the first question I have is, thanks for a great interaction. I want to know how AI is going to affect the nuclear industry and hiring. Most IT fields are impacted since AI could replace coders. However, nuclear industry needs to power those AI servers, and seems like nuclear is going to benefit from the AI boom. But nuclear industry, would AI replace workers?
I don't see AI ever fully replacing workers. I see AI making the job easier. You're always going to have a person check the work that AI does. There's certain reports that we have to create. If we have an equipment failure, we do a maintenance rule evaluation. We can download into AI a good maintenance rule evaluation. We can download, a vendor manual, and we can have it create the first draft of this document. But we're always going to have a person look at that because, AI is looking at databases, which could be true or it could have bad information. So it's never going to get rid of actual people reviewing it, but I think it's going to make the workload lighter. So one of the things that I think it's going to do is give people more time to look at what do we need to be doing going forward? What can we do to improve processes? What modification should we put in the plant to make it, less susceptible to a trip? Because right now, all the time that we're spending writing these reports, we're not doing those types of things, those forward-looking things that are gonna, make us move forward in the future. So I see it as lightening the workload and allowing time for, I'll say, even more important things than just writing reports.
You can think of all the hours I spent running the corrective action program for Byron Ops while I was there trying to figure out what was going on. Where now you can do a search and it's much easier to do those trend analyses that I
Yeah.
usually.
We had an equipment failure, and we took the sequence of events recorder, the thing that prints out all the alarms that came in, and we put the vendor manual in to AI and said, here's the alarms we got, here's the vendor manual, what are the potential causes of the failure? And it spit out a whole list of things for us to go check. And the team that we had working on it came up with a very similar list, and it helped us with that troubleshooting. So the equipment failure actually took us offline. And so by using that, we were able to come up with a troubleshooting plan much quicker to get the plant back online. So it's pretty exciting what you
Yeah.
can do. And that was just with Copilot, not with some, specific program that we purchased.
Yeah, because there's a lot of work going on now. I'm putting those together. I'm sure you have the vendors at your door.
Oh, yes. Yep. But we're looking at, writing work packages to go work on equipment. You can put the vendor manual in, you can put in what a good work package looks like, and it'll give you that first draft. We're still going to have people, refine it to make sure it's good before we send it out to the field.
Do you think everybody needs to have some familiarity with being able to use AI?
I do. I think we have a lot of people that I don't want to say they're scared of using it. They don't have interest. And I think that it would make everybody's job easier. Even, writing an email. You can write your email and send it through there and it'll make it better, So I think everyone should play around in it. And the more you play with it, the more familiar you become and the more you're going to use it because it's going to save you time.
Schools are trying to do a lot. How do we, bring AI in? But everybody's afraid of students using AI for things that they shouldn't is the
Oh,
problem. We got to get past that.
yeah.
So we have a question in the chat that says, as the industry expands with advanced reactors, what changes are most needed in how we train, recruit, and retain talent to meet future demand?
So I do think that the competition for resources is going to go up as we build new plants. And so we're going to have to make sure that we're offering, competitive packages to keep people. And I think that when I think about my traditional plant versus the new plants, you think about people just entering the field. Are they going to want to work at a plant with older technology? Are they going to work at the plant with newer technology? And I think most young folks would gravitate towards, the newer technology. So one of the things we're working on as a company is allowing folks working at Cook to also work on our new nuclear plant. So we don't have to lose folks that from our plant. They can work on both so they can, expand their knowledge around the new nuclear and stay involved in that. So I think you have to kind of think outside of the box on how you're going to keep people energized, keep people working on what they want, and not lose the talent while you do that. But I do think that resources are going to be a pinch point for us as a country going forward.
Do you know yet what you're looking at for as far as an advanced reactor at Cook?
Not that we're stating publicly, but our philosophy is we're going to build what our customers want, whether it's the data center customer, whether it's the state that's our customer. We're not going to limit it to a single technology. It's going to be what our customers want.
Okay, it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
There's so many out there that it's really no telling what the competition is going to be yet for another, at least for a couple of years. Well, I think we'll start seeing some people start coming out.
Right. Yep. I think we'll be starting to hear some more firm things pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, especially as the data center people keep throwing more money to add it to help with it.
Yeah.
We have another question that came in. What value do you place on a government security clearance held at previous employment?
I would say it's not necessarily a requirement or anything along those lines, but what it would tell me is that you're going to be able to likely get a badge at a nuclear plant. So, you know, you have to do background checks and all those types of things before you're allowed unescorted access at the plant. So that would be something that would give me some confidence that if we hire you, you're going to make it through that process.
So me being, coming out of Navy nuclear power, is people that have experience in naval nuclear power still popular for hiring for the plants?
Oh, definitely. Um, you know, we used to hire a lot, and we still want to, but the population has been dwindling, or at least, you know, going in other places. So, people with that background, you know, they've proven that they can learn how to, you know, run a plant, and those skills are definitely transferable. You know, the military background is something that fits in well with the culture at a nuclear plant as far as, you know, the standards and the no shortcuts and those kinds of things. So I would definitely appreciate many more opportunities to hire folks with the military background.
I'll keep making that ad to my students as they graduate. But like you said, the numbers have gone down a lot over
Yeah.
the years because of the numbers, just the numbers in the Navy. And a lot of my students are going to the data centers, is becoming one of the more popular places that they're going
Yep.
to.
Yep. So you should come my way, everyone.
We had a question come in. While currently in the nuclear navy, when is a good time to reach out about future employment interest?
Anytime. So we always have job postings online. If we do have internships, and those typically we start looking for interns in the summertime for the next year. And the other things we have for folks in the in the military. Oh, I'm not going to remember the name of the program. If you're getting ready to get out of the military, you can come actually work at the plant. I should have Googled it before this. But you can come while you're still in the military, and the military pays your salary, and you can see if you like it. And we actually had an INC technician. He was getting out of the Navy. He came, he worked at the plant. I think it was for 3 months, and he liked it, and we liked him, and we ended up hiring him. So there is a program like that, and I wish I had the name in front of me, but I'll look it up. Dick, and I can send it to you so you can send it out to the folks.
I'll
But
do
that's
that.
a really cool program because right as you're getting ready to retire, you can go and see before you commit to something if you like it.
Yeah, that one's new to me. I hadn't heard about that before, so I've got to do some research into it because it sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I know we found out for a while that interns that come to work in nuclear are more likely to stay in nuclear than people that come in and have unpleasant surprises when they first get going, is what we learned about new engineers a few years ago.
Yeah. And our interns, we typically, before they go back to school, we actually give them a job offer, even, you know, juniors, so that if they like it there and we think they do a good job, we'll give them a job offer before they even start their junior year.
That's a great way to go. Do you do anything similar with high school students?
Not yet. I have been starting to talk with a local community college because they just started some certified courses in some of the craft areas. And so they could actually get their certification while they're in high school, you know, for welding, those types of things. So we're looking at a partnership there where they could go get their certification and then come right to work.
That'd be great because trade skills are really hard to get.
They are. Yep.
Gilbridge.
Skill Bridge,
Somebody
yep.
came up with what it was.
Yep, thank you.
So I got to do some more looking at that. I will recommend that to my students.
Yep, it's a great program.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. It looks like we've gotten through all the questions, Kelly. So I really appreciate your taking time to talk with us tonight and sharing. We have students from all over the country. I saw from the list of people that were registered for the course, we tried to communicate as much as we can through ANS and through our other student chapters also. But really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone that was able to join us tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm always on LinkedIn on my profile. Feel free to contact me there to do that. And I'm always willing to do anything for my students or anybody else's students when it comes to it. That's why
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if people have questions for me, I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm happy to connect with anyone that would like to.